What's happening, Brighton? The short answer is a lot. The long answer is this podcast. What's Up, Brighton is a show dedicated to the community we all love.
Hosted by Roger Burnett, Eric Meldrum, and Coach Mark Howell, this podcast will feature news, issues, and discussions impacting Livingston County and celebrate the people who make our slice of Michigan go and grow. This is What's Up, Brighton.
There's a lot of fun going on.
I mean, did you walk down the street today?
I just got back from there. I just did a live walking down Taste of Brighton.
Taste of Brighton.
Yep, I gave everybody a grand tour of all the vendors, all the businesses out there. Yeah, it was good. I came in here sweating.
You were a little sweaty.
Yeah.
You're a little sweaty. So what's up, Brighton? My name is Roger. Welcome to episode 22 of the program. No, 23.
23.
Episode 23 of the program. We're running hard time keeping track. You know, we're sizzling through these episodes. But today we have a special guest in addition to Eric over here, who we always have. Say what's happening, Eric.
What's up?
And Coach Mark, who is on assignment. His parole board meeting was today. Really, unfortunately, could not tear himself away. So we've got a guest instead. We've got, welcome, John. John's going to tell you all about himself here in just a moment. But we had an episode a few weeks back that talked about, for all intents and purposes, what everyone in the community likes to call the naked man.
We had Elephant Man.
Elephant Man. We actually have the name, and if you'd like to go back to that episode and discusses the entire history of not only that sculpture, but the installation that occurred as a result. And here we have the man, the myth, the legend himself, who was responsible for some of that. So John, hi.
Roger.
Welcome
Hello.
to the program.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. It's been a minute. You look largely the same.
I think so. Well, at least the large part.
Oh,
right? So
well,
yeah,
you know.
Thanks, Roger. Thanks a lot. I'm trying to be svelte, and you guys have to point out the obvious. So.
Roger's on a 75 hard, and he's can't keep up with a slim physique here.
Man.
Yeah, not great these days. I need a cheeseburger. So, John, in addition to your role in what's occurred with the art installation in the city of Brighton, what do you do for vocation? What keeps you busy during the day?
Again? Oh, I actually work in public art.
There you go.
Yeah.
So you want to tell the people a little bit about that background and what you've been able to...
This year I'm celebrating 20 years of the Suave Art Foundation.
There we go.
Their mission statement is building communities through public art. And the very first community that we installed the show in was the city of Brighton, because I live here.
Yeah.
So
And it's been a minute, right?
Yeah.
This is the guy. This is
you
the
can
guy.
blame me now. Yeah.
Right. Well, but before we dive into that, where else has said installations occurred where people might also be able to, if they were paying attention, be able to see some of what's gone on?
The city of Birmingham, the Delta College, city of Charlevoix. I worked with Crooked Tree in Petoskey, where we went from Mackinac Island down to Crystal Mountain. Garden City, fabulous Garden City. This year, right now, we just we're dedicating this summer. I'm working on an island in the middle of Grand River, not Grand River here, but where Grand River lets out in Grand Haven.
Uh-huh.
There was a power plant up for 100 years. They took it down, and we put a sculpture park up.
Really?
Because I thought, how would you like to reimagine this island in the middle of the river that everybody downtown looks at when they're looking at the musical fountain just to the right of it, this island, Harbor Island. We have the Harbor Island Sculpture Park, which is being dedicated this summer.
As someone who has attended the festival in Grand Haven, it's the only thing that was sort of making it not great was if you didn't look straight at the fountain, there was like that. And now to know that it's gone from that to something more beautiful
I
is
think
amazing.
it's a good storyline.
Absolutely.
To say, hey, you know, we've got this valuable real estate, and how do we want to reimagine it? And this is the first foray with public art along the shores of the island in Linear Park.
Pretty cool.
Super cool. For those of you who travel I-96, if you are heading west back to Brighton, what used to be what do we call that?
It's
in
a
South Lane?
landfill.
The landfill
Roger.
has become now
Not a dump. It's a landfill.
and now it's a park.
It is a park.
And in
Lyon
said park,
Township. It's Atchison Park.
Atchison Park.
Yeah.
At the top of Atchison Park is an installation that if you have looked up to your left, on your way home from I-96, right there on the freeway, the man in the city, which is...
He's been up for 15 years.
There you go.
Yeah.
There it is. And
The infamous.
Yeah.
If you're driving down 96 and you just so happen to catch it out of the corner of your eye, you're like, man, what's that guy doing up there?
and why is he looking at us? And, and what?
Creepy guy.
So do you want to talk a little bit about Man in the City specifically, and what was the inspiration
Man in
behind
the
that?
City was a whole different animal. That's not me in the curator role. That is me putting together a public art piece. And that came about in 2008. I was attending a fundraiser in Manhattan, and I ended up talking to someone while I was looking at it was for a school in the city. And I ended up talking to the executive director, and he said all their arts funding had gotten cut. And so I'm talking to him a little bit, came back, and I go, hey, you know what? If I could come up with a program this summer for your kids, it's the Hendrick Martin Institute. And it is a New York City public school that they were doing the fundraiser for. And after 10 minutes of talking to him, he said, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. And so we had Mark Echo come in and fund the whole thing with a grant. And we put up a couple dozen men, orange men, the positive version of the man on the hill that you were referring to, the following year. And we did it on the High Line because the High Line had just opened that next year. And it's the newest park for the city of Manhattan. And it was brand new at the time. And the two guys that were responsible for putting that park together, I befriended them. We had been talking for years. And when this opportunity came about, they didn't have a public art plan. And they said, yeah, we could do this. So the kids came out and installed these men along the High Line. And it kind of started there. And I came back and I was talking to some friends here in Detroit, and I wasn't really ready to launch anything, but the Pastorio brothers, who have, they had a studio downtown in Harmony Park. It was Harmony Park Studios. They said, hey, we have a building. Why don't you put one up here? And so worst way to do stuff, not have a full developed plan. And we started mounting them on rooftops throughout the city of Detroit. And there's over 100 of them throughout the city. And from there, it had a lot of other outcroppings, one of them being Petoskey. When I was talking to some friends up there, the Art Center, they were trying to do a show based on the city of Detroit in 2014. They said, hey, will you bring this up north? So we installed them from Mackinac Island all the way down to Crystal Mountain and every city in between. And it's funny how art really takes a life of its own. You can't predict. You can never predict anything, especially when we're talking about the city of Brighton's Brighton Biannual. You can't really predict the outcome. And we'll get into that, but that's what's fun about it.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. And to know, like, it's one of those, once you see it, then you realize, oh my gosh, like this thing is all over the place.
I knew none of that. Like,
Yeah.
I literally knew none. I thought it was just one random guy who put that thing up, and you're the random guy.
I am a random
You're
guy.
the random guy. Boom.
That's usually how it's referred to me in any press clipping that says random guy.
Yes. Mr. Random Guy brings a beautiful.
Not convicted, though. It never says convicted. It just says random guy.
No, because then they would have to use his middle name.
Exposed, maybe, but not convicted. Yeah.
Oh, but that is a cool backstory. I mean, it ties in the city of Detroit, New York. I mean, that's got a lot of history. And yet, like, from my point of view, that gives me a deeper appreciation, just understanding, like, okay, that's not just the art piece. Like, you can look at it for what it is, but knowing the history of something and how it got there, it's pretty cool.
So you're saying if you actually want to know the history, you have to ask as opposed to posting on your website and just mouthing off?
Yes, you have to ask.
I actually like the mouthing off because it kind of delves deeper into what the real issues are.
Yeah.
Why is there so much traffic in this town?
That's a story for another day.
Angry.
I've told Roger this before, and it's one of those things, like, when you're in that type of stuff for so long that you just become callous to it, and at some token you're like, I just want nothing to do with that. I just want nothing to do with that. Like, you have to check your mind out and give your mind a break. Like, guys, this is not a good representation. It's not a good look, for the people of Brighton.
It all depends on what you want to do with it. And Roger and I had the opportunity to talk before the podcast about the filters and what people are allowed to post on your pages, and because it's Brighton, what's happening, right? Brighton?
Right, Michigan happenings.
Yeah, because it's now I take a different perspective on that, because in 2004, when we first set up this Brighton biannual, it was when every comment to the Argus and to, at the time we had the Ann Arbor paper here too, every comment, they would leave it in. So there was no filters, there was no shutting it down. And it is the best thing that ever happened to a sculpture exhibit, because all that stuff came out, and it was hatred from the moment we put up the first piece right behind this building. We put the very first piece up, and there's no way to prepare. it was absolute hatred right from the get-go. But it's formulaic, because it's always the loudest ones that come out first.
100%.
And then all of a sudden people go, you're lucky there's even a show in this town. And that's what ultimately happened. And I know you guys referenced some of the writings in the last episode about this, but you just got to stick to it. If you believe in what you're doing, which you guys do, and I like the approach to this podcast because it's very positive. It's like, hey, we're taking our time to highlight things in the city of Brighton. And you're taking your time to do that. So people should either appreciate it or move on. Find some other place to
Well said, John.
Yeah.
Move on.
Round of applause for John.
No, I like your attitude here.
Yeah.
So
That's a very foreign concept. Move on.
Moving on.
Scroll on.
well, people tell me to move on all the time. I'm very used to it.
Move
So
on.
why don't you move on?
Move on,
I
random
think
guy.
we've had enough with you.
So I love the idea. Let's go in that way back machine. Let's rewind the tape back to the very early days of what occurred and what became very quickly a hate-filled diatribe. Like, what was the environment? How did the project incubate itself prior to all the vitriol that?
Well, one of the things I mentioned hate. That's a direct quote from Buddy Morehouse's prime headline. That was, "The verdict is in. You hate it." So I embrace those terms. I love that part.
Are you or a loved one struggling with the effects of stroke? The Oxford Center in Brighton, Michigan offers a cutting-edge alternative stroke treatment that can help stroke victims even years after having a stroke. Our approach combines traditional medicine with evidence-based alternative therapies, including hyperbaric oxygen therapy. This advanced treatment involves breathing pure oxygen in a specialized environment that can stimulate the growth of new blood vessels and promote healing in the brain. We also offer physical therapy, speech therapy, and occupational therapy programs to help patients regain their strength, coordination, and ability to communicate. Time is of the essence when it comes to stroke recovery. Contact the Oxford Center today at 248-486-3636 or visit our website at theoxfordcenter.com to learn more about our alternative stroke treatment options, including hyperbaric oxygen therapy. That's 248-486-3636 or visit theoxfordcenter.com.
So really how this all came about was I had some key people in town. Brian Lavin was a lawyer here for a long time. He was also on city council, and their motto was fiscal responsibility at any cost. And I love that.
At any cost. Yeah.
I'd go sit in his office and talk to him forever. And he was one of our first supporters, my first supporter for public art. And we put a piece in front of his building. And then we got some attention, and, positive, negative, whatever. And then I was also friends with Larry Lawrence at the time too. So I'd always been stopping in, talking to him. And at the time, Kate, his wife, became mayor. Mm-hmm. And it would be funny. I'd go visit Larry in the garage and we'd be working on something. And there'd be a trooper who would come up to drop off the plans for the city council meeting for Kate. And he and I would run inside just from previous experiences, baby. We didn't need to. It was just
pure muscle
dropping off
memory.
the paperwork for the meeting that night.
Just
But Larry
habits.
and I just
Muscle memory. Whoa.
But Larry was great. I love that guy. But Kate, oh my God, without Kate, there wouldn't be a Brighton biannual. And she's amazing. It didn't take any explaining to her at all. We knew each other for a while, but she said, "This is good for the community." And I'm like, absolutely. So she bought into it, went with it 100%. And then the key player there was Pete Linhout, who was, since he's retired recently, but he was an architect here in town. And Pete he knew the system. He knew how everything worked. And is an artist himself, and he has a piece that's still up from that original Brighton biennial. And good guy, because you have to know how to work within the system to get things done. And it wasn't a rubber stamp by any means. We got it all approved, and then before we installed, Steve Monette took over as mayor, so we had to start over.
Oh, wow.
So luckily, Steve is a rational, reasonable guy. Wasn't a big art fan at first, so it took some effort. But Steve is a good man, and he said, there's a lot of effort that was put into this, and we're going to see it through. So, but there was roadblocks all along the way, unexpected roadblocks, which what we call that, Roger, right? Is
opportunity.
Yeah,
there we go.
We went through those sales training
Yeah,
programs together. Yeah, so. And that's all it is if you believe in it, you want to see it through. And believe me, I wanted to quit a couple times because of the approach that we had to do with this. But it was like, nope, we're going to make it happen. And the best part about it, back to those little clips and people making comments, and without those comments, unfiltered comments, no one would know there was a sculpture.
Right.
Yep.
And the other thing is, it's really putting your finger on the pulse of humanity, inhumanity. No, one of those. I know it's one of them, but it's like, whoa, I live here. This is what's going on.
Right.
It's like, get off my lawn.
What was the scope? How many pieces comprise the original install? Like, was it just let's get one in and then we can?
So I got to back up a little bit because in the 80s, I worked for a couple of years for the Michigan Commission on Art in Public Places.
Okay.
So it's not like I was going out and saying, hey, you got some pipes in your backyard? You want to tie them together? Because I was approached with several offers like that.
Sure.
But I know who the key players are that work in public art. And so when we got the approval, which took quite a while to get the approval.
An entire term of a mayor.
Exactly.
There you go.
And,
That doesn't sound like government.
No. I got to put a plug in right here too. It's one thing to say we want to do it, but it's another to have a place to land these sculptures. So
Right.
all the concrete that you saw throughout the city is Sardo and Vince Doa. Sardo Construction. My friend Vince Doa he was there for everything. And he, people didn't even think it was going to happen. He shows up with a crew. They put 40 pads in, those big upright ones,
Yeah.
big flat ones. To put one pad in, that's a lot. 40 pads. He came out with a crew and did 40 pads on his dime.
Wow.
Because he believed in public art in Brighton.
That's awesome.
cool.
So nobody knows that. And Vince, who's an amazing guy, love him, he came out and he made that happen. And then we had a place to park this art. But because of my previous life and my interest in the public art, there's only so many people that do public art. And we had 40 sculptors from around the area, as far as Chicago and some in Ohio. But there's only so many people that do this kind of thing. And we had them all in there. And it was a really great show. But again, those comments made the show. And everything I picked out that I thought, I'm going to get in trouble for this, nobody even noticed it.
Oh, the stuff you expected to be.
Yeah. I'm like, what?
Wow.
Boy, this is crazy.
Wow.
Sometimes it's based on what the title was, too.
Sure.
And what the politics of the time were.
Uh-huh.
But the one we put up behind this building was pretty good size. It was kind of a tripod with some elements on it. And it was called, what was it? That one, Evolution 1. And it was right around the time of teaching evolution in school was resurfacing. It was like the Scopes monkey trial circa 2003 or something. And so they took the title and ran with that, and it became an evolution title. And I'm like, cool, this is even funner. And then I would have never predicted the decision pending, which is Jay Holland. Jay Holland taught at CCS. It was a different name, College for Arts and Crafts. Then it became CCS in Detroit. He taught there for 50 years. That piece sat on campus at CCS. I pulled it off campus. It was there for probably 15 years, and it's a bronze piece. Now it is part of the Brighton collection. But Jay is a well-known and well-respected sculptor, since passed. But we were lucky to have that piece in the show, let alone the opportunity to purchase the piece. And it took this I forget who gave it that name, but I'm sure it was one of the local Brighton scholars, the Ugly Naked Man, and it stuck. The good thing about that getting called the Ugly Naked Man, my two favorite parts of the references for press, The Naturalist and the American Nudist both covered it in
Really?
their magazine. And I pride myself on that because
Yeah.
I'm like, made the Naturalist. Finally, all these years in my front yard, nobody notices, and I finally make the Naturalist.
Nice. All press is good press.
That's what I say.
Yeah. All press is good press.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So it didn't go so great.
Oh, it went great. It was perfect. The whole thing is, in the press, if you read that and think that's an indicator of anything, you're wrong.
Okay.
Doesn't mean anything.
All
It
right.
means nothing.
Here's the truth.
Well,
This
there
is
you
the
go.
truth. This is why we get to the bottom of this stuff.
Right.
So you guys just said you should have a walking tour of the sculptures downtown. Well, those sculptures are still here, a lot of them. And I can tell you when we first launched the Brighton Biennial, we had a celebration. We had people come out of the woodwork, and a couple of my friends who had businesses here for a long time were open past 5 o'clock. And one of them, it was a Tuesday, and she was open. Linda, I can't remember her name. She rebuilt the first building. She was the first high-rise on Main Street. And it was interiors, something interior. She's great.
CW?
Yeah, CW. When she rebuilt that building, it was a Tuesday. She's open at 10 o'clock. She goes, I've never had business like this before. There was a reason to come downtown. There was a reason for bars to stay open past 9 o'clock. And this isn't like me reading it somewhere. This is me talking to people for the last 4 or 5 years while I was installing this and them saying, this is great. And they bought into it and they embraced it because they're there all day, 24/7, keeping a business afloat. And now people are there past 5 o'clock. And there was a reason to come downtown in addition to what they had to provide. And they capitalized on it. And that was probably the strongest testament that local business owners said, this is the best thing that's ever happened. So
What better testimonial?
Yeah, that's a great story. I mean, a lot of history, there, and there's like a lot of like new stuff like this we have today, and I don't think anybody's really tried anything like this, recently. Like we've had some additions, and the amp, is kind of an example of that. Like we're bringing something fresh to Brighton, and this is a little unknown fact that like not a lot of people even recognize. Like it's so hidden around the city in a lot of different ways. Like the Naked Man is so recognizable because of where it is, right? Like it's right on Main Street, right in front of the mill pond.
sure it's not because someone's bitching about it. 'Cause I don't think anybody would.
They wouldn't bitch about it if it was behind a building. Guaranteed.
I don't know. It's hard to say.
Sounds like a hypothesis that might need to be
Should
tested.
we move it?
Should we
Find
move
out?
it?
Yeah.
It did get moved, and a lot of people were happy about it.
Right.
Well, it got moved front and
Away.
center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was back further. Now it's right on the
Now
road.
it's right there.
Yeah. I just left my car keys in his hand. I thought it was real.
Yeah. Here, hold this.
It's a valet.
Yeah.
Hold my
I got
beer.
confused. Yeah.
Hold my beer while I go.
He's in the middle of the
One
social
quick
district.
story on that, though. My friend Jay, when he was alive, he had a friend that was in town. He was stopping in because he wanted to see Jay's sculpture. Stopped at Chalamichi's, had a couple drinks, came out, called Jay on a Sunday night at 9 o'clock and said, Jay, someone defaced your sculpture. So Jay calls me and he's all upset. He goes, yeah, I heard something went wrong with the sculpture. So I went down there and I'm on the phone with him. I'm talking to him and he goes, Jay, everything's intact. Everything's here. No, my friend said someone knocked a penis off of it. And I said, no, Jay, contrary to what you say and think and believe, it is not bigger than when it showed up here. And I had to walk him back because he was like, delusional
true
about the
story.
size of the penis on the Naked Man. I don't know.
Story of his life, I'm sure.
Yeah. Have you ever looked at the penis on the Naked Man?
Yeah.
There's no penis there.
Yeah.
I mean, it all depends on how you say it. Jay thought there was. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, it looks like a Matchbox
Yeah.
car.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people say those look bigger than they really are, but
Maybe not in
talking
this
about
instance.
penises on this show.
It was this big.
Yeah.
It was this big. I promise you. I promise
He
you.
wanted me to call the cops because he thought the penis was knocked off, and I'm like, it was never there.
You
Jay.
can't knock something off that's not there.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't do it.
I'm sure he's heard that before too. So.
There's a T-shirt.
There it is. That's funny. That is funny.
And yet we put that guy away for a while. It was the best time
The
ever.
resurrection of the headlines.
Was it not?
Yeah.
What we learned, ladies and gentlemen, in the time between the original installation and its reinstallation John, as someone who was witness to both, how could you compare and contrast what you heard and saw when the naked, ugly guy, decision pending, as it were, re-entered his spot?
I'm going to say there was a lot more attention when it first showed up. And it was a few key voices that made it their mantra. And couldn't be happier because they got so much attention and there was all kinds of misinformation. There's still misinformation, which I'm very proud to say you can capitalize on if you work the right way. But when it first showed up, a few individuals were calling other individuals, and there was a call to a state senator at the time and said, well, what about this naked man sculpture downtown Brighton? And of course, he made a comment without looking at it and said, it's horrible. You shouldn't have a naked man sculpture downtown. And then Kate Lawrence said, did you look at the naked man? There's no naked man. It's not a naked man. It's a like take apart, put together figure at best.
Right.
And that's the funniest thing. Most people that go off on it have never even looked at it. They're not about, hey, what's the bigger picture, appreciating that there even is an opportunity to see public art in your community. It's about, well, somebody said there's a naked man down there, and I believe there's a naked man down there, and I'm going to tell you can't have naked men down there. And then they show up and they go, where's the naked man? I go, you're leaning on him right now.
He's got your keys.
Man. Yeah.
That's a
You just
really,
gave your
really
keys
good
to
point. That's a really good point. Yeah.
Well, it's fun. I love it because it's another issue. There's always some other issue when somebody's that volatile and so angry about something. Oh, have we ever experienced stuff like that before? There really is something more than the actual topic at hand.
I say that all the time. Literally, I say that multiple times. Like people would DM me, in the group and be like, blah, 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 blah. They're going off and like whatever the stupid little thing is. And I'm like, look, if this is getting you so riled up, like and you have to put this much hate out into the world, like there's something else going on. Like, what's up? Like, why are you so angry with people that you feel the need to lash out and like, cause a disruption for this? Like, you wouldn't say that to the person in front of you at the grocery store. You wouldn't say to the person behind you, but because you got a keyboard or you hide behind it now, it's so relevant. But,
well, that was 2004.
Yeah.
That this is all happening.
Oh,
that's not modern
They were
day.
texting on Nextel.
Exactly. No, but that's the thing is we always think, oh, this is a common occurrence that just happened today. No, this has been going on forever. There's always been, elderly individuals that say, get off my lawn.
100%.
Myself included. Roger.
I will not deny, right? And I've been accused a couple times now in the group of being a boomer, even though I'm not. But sometimes if you have an opinion that other people don't necessarily see eye to eye, it's just easy to be reductive, which is fine. Like it's fine. It's name calling. I grew up with that, like whether it's online or in your face, like, okay, that's cool. What I think is neat for me, for you, not only as a Brighton resident, but as someone who's been responsible for art installations all over our state, all over the country, you're already intimating to the idea of like the provocative nature of people's being angry is good to a certain extent. So
well, I'm just saying you have to deal with it so you can let it take you down, which you guys all too well. I heard a couple of these shows and you turn a negative into a positive.
Do our best.
Yeah.
Do our best.
That's I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying, what are you going to do? You can't ignore it. And so you have to embrace it and say it's a valid opinion because it's someone's opinion. But at the same time, you can find the entertainment.
Yeah,
so this is
you don't have to agree with it.
Well, but this is so whether it's Petoskey or Charlevoix or the myriad other places that you've been responsible for watching this occur, how does it differ? How is it the same?
It's all the same.
It's all the same.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can give you a million instances. Prime one. Okay, I'm gonna give you the negative positive. Garden City put a show together, and there was a large pig. It was a bigger than life pig it was aluminum, and it was mounted right on the concrete right downtown. And a Facebook page showed up within a week that hated it. We hate this pig. We hate this pig. We hate this pig. We hate this pig. Until some group of random thugs removed the pig. They didn't find it for probably a couple months. And that page overnight turned into, you can't take our pig. Only we can take our pig. Then they raised money. They had a barbecue to raise money to replace the pig and make it permanent. And if you drive to Garden City, they put a fortune into their downtown center right on Ford Road and Main Street there. And they put all this, redeveloped it, got a landscape architect. It's really nice. And there's a giant pig right in the middle of it because someone took the pig down and they were so vocal about it, they became lovers of it in the long term. That's always the way it works. People hate it, and then they realize, I'm being kind of silly. I should really embrace this.
I hate it, but it's mine.
Yeah.
Please
hold on.
Please tell me that this was a pig roast that they had to bring the pig back.
That only would make
Yeah,
sense.
they
So
did.
was it a pig roast or just a barbecue?
Well, it was a pig roast.
Yeah,
it was
100%.
It was
Yes.
a pig roast.
Let's
They
go.
raised money,
All right.
and then they bought a new one
So
to
the-
replace the old
That's
one.
so fitting.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure the original pig never was recovered.
Oh, it was.
Okay, so then they had two.
They caught him.
Yeah.
Well, they had a new one.
Nice.
The old one was there
Mm.
was some angry young lads that took
I
that pig
see.
and took him apart.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So he was deconstructed.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, defaced maybe.
Those who cannot
He was
create,
butchered. He was butchered.
must tear apart.
destroy.
There you
Yeah.
go. There you go.
Yeah. That is-
So you would have gone to that pig roast, see that?
I would have gone to that pig roast.
100%.
Yeah, that's great.
There's a pig roast across the street today.
There is.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Taste
going
of
on.
Brighton.
Lot
Yeah.
going on across
Brighton.
the street.
So, John, what's next? What's next in this whole?
Oh, for
Yeah.
Brighton?
Yeah.
Well, Brighton has since, there's been several administrations. They're still going strong. They redid the streetscapes, and they, happy to say that they maintained all of those concrete pads that we put in, with the exception of a few, very few that had been long gone anyways after the art was removed. But Brighton is on the map for public art, and that's since we started that in 2001. We started working on this. And it's a long time coming just to get to the point where we installed and had the dedication. And I don't know, I kind of like being able to see it. And there's been, I know one of my favorite things that came out of this was we were out filming some stuff one day, and a friend of mine said, hey, there's a young man in school who every day he has to stop and check the sculptures because his mom reads the paper to him, and he hears about everybody hating the artwork. And I'm sitting with the film crew going, gold mine, let's go find this young man.
Yeah.
But his name is Austin. And we made a movie, which has been playing on PBS for 15 years now. They sync it in everywhere. It's probably 15 minutes long, something like that. It's played at a couple of film fests. It played at the Art Gallery of Windsor for its debut for their film, the Detroit Windsor Film Festival. But Austin, turns out, graduate of Brighton schools, and his mom, Faith, let me have him is for this short film we put together. And it's a really good film, and it's all about the reaction to the Brighton Biennial from people within the press. And here's a 8-year-old autistic boy from the city of Brighton who was worried about the sculptures because he was reading about it in the paper, and his mom was telling him about it, and she had to reassure him that, oh, no, that one's there today, that one's there today. I think a couple were removed, and some vandals had taken a couple of the sculptures and beat up a couple sculptures when it first came out. Very few, but there was some activity that he was concerned about. So every morning on the way to school, Faith had to drive Austin by these things so he could check on them. Austin's 26 now, and he was 8 when we did the film.
Wow.
And in fact, I just showed it at a film fest last year, and people had no idea what it was about or anything. And at the end, they're like, holy smokes, because it's this innocence and the sincerity of a young person to help put the perspective on all these comments that you get on your Facebook page, and put things in perspective and say, hey, I got it pretty good, and why am I picking on the poor naked man? Why is that? So
My only last question is, at the corner of Main Street and Grand River, there used to be that giant head.
it's still there.
Right in that spot?
Yeah, same spot.
I swear. I swear he was gone.
No, the head's name, the sculpture is named Bob.
He's
And,
Bob.
Yeah, Cheeto Johnson is the head of the sculpture department to this day at CCS. And he carved that head, and he told me it was Bob because of that commercial for Viagra. The guy's name was Bob. Those first commercials from Viagra, and he had a big smile
Yeah.
on his face, and that's why the head had a big
I
smile.
love it.
And so,
there's going to be furor now.
I shouldn't out her, but Kate Lawrence bought that sculpture and donated it to the city. So thank you, Kate, for bringing Bob to the city.
Happy Bob.
I said Bob used to every day when I would come home, he'd be there just like, hey, man, what's happening?
Oh, yeah.
And now if I only knew that he had the Viagra smile on his face,
yeah.
that would have made me feel so much better.
Right.
Like, yeah, man, good. Yeah, there you go. Good times are ahead.
Isn't all public art about Viagra?
To us.
It is now. I just said it. So
There you go. Is there like a map that people can find like online? Does that exist?
I think on Brighton, the city of Brighton's website, you can find all of this stuff. Yeah, I believe it's. I looked at it a couple years ago, and I'm pretty sure that it's been updated a few times. And so I would go to the city of Brighton's website and
Check it out.
Yeah.
I'll check on the app. I
Yeah.
was looking for like their some meeting minutes of their city council meetings. They don't have those on the website right now.
Oh, yeah, because they were pretty lively back then too. There was, actually there was. Those are stories I don't want to tell, but they were pretty fun. It was amazing to hear what people's impression, because this was all new to everybody. There was nothing in Brighton. There was nothing in the realm of public art when we started this, and it was fantastic because everybody had a different expectation, and so we had to wait. It took probably 4 years. Well, it did. It took 4 years to get this thing to a point where we were all on the same page, and then the administration changed, and we had to do some scrambling, and there was a lot of uphill battles, and there was some administrative roadblocks and intrigue and espionage. All kinds of fun stuff.
Espionage. That doesn't sound like anything government related.
No,
No deep state. Absolutely no deep state.
no, it was
Yeah.
all out in the open. It was
All
easy to
out in the
find. Yeah.
So, Mr. Eric, is there a way for you to put a ribbon on this
I
particular
don't think we
discussion?
need a ribbon on this one. I think John's done a great job of like really tying in, the history of this. And I've been just captivated this whole entire time, just listening to like the story behind it. Cause we moved here in 2016, so a lot of this history, and this might be great information for people, kind of similar to my situation. Like I didn't grow up here. I wasn't here. I haven't been here 30 plus years to like see, the inception, even though we came out here when I was a little kid. Like we went to Long Lake. My friend had a cottage out there. They've since built like primary residence, but we came out here when it was really nothing, and people grew up like that. So for me to understand a little bit more context about what happened early 2000s and now seeing it, mid 2020, like it's completely different, absolutely completely different. So John, I appreciate you coming on. Like this has been very insightful information, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well. But I think that's it. That's all.
So that's it. That's all. That's everything. John, thanks, man.
No, I
I
appreciate
so
it.
love that we are in a position where we
Just
can
let me hanging.
get a couple,
let me hanging.
get a couple phone calls.
I was turning Eric.
We get a couple phone calls, and
I
next
don't want
thing
to
you
talk to
know,
Eric anymore.
we got people not dapping each other up over on the end of the table. So if this episode was at all interesting to you, please, by all means, subscribe to the show. It lets us know that we're actually bringing value to all of you and the stuff that we're bringing to you. And then if there's other people that you think would like to know more about why we have such great art in our community, this will be a great episode for you to share. And if there are other members of the community that you think would be good participants for us to bring into the program, by all means, share those people with us, because we will absolutely do everything in our power to get those people on the program. And on behalf of these two fine gentlemen, this is Roger signing out.